Good morning, everyone. Whoever you are, however you have come to us, whatever brings you here this morning, however you are in your body or your spirit, you are welcome here. Welcome to the live stream worship here at First Parish in Cambridge. My name is Jan Pubello, and I am the chair of the governing board, and it is really a pleasure to welcome you this morning. And today, we are very excited to welcome back Reverend Adam Lawrence Dyer, our lead minister. A reminder to please mute your microphone during our service. Carol will be placing a copy of the order of service in the chat. And now we begin our service with a prelude by Joe Reed.
We light this candle in honor of the native Massachusetts people and an acknowledgement that we now live on land that was their ancestral homeland and was taken from them. This act of faith by Reverend Gretchen Haley. What's going to happen? Will everything be okay? What can I do? In these days, we find ourselves too often stuck with these questions on repeat. What's going to happen? Will everything be okay? What can I do? We grasp at signs and markers, articles of news and analysis, Facebook memes and forwarded emails as if the new zodiac, capable of forecasting all that life may yet bring our way, as if we could prepare, as if life had ever made any promises of making sense or turning out the way we'd thought, as if we are not also actors in this still unfolding story. For this hour, we gather to surrender to the mystery, to release ourselves from the needing to know, the yearning to have it all already figured out, and also the burden of believing we either have all the control or none. Here in our song and our silence, our stories and our sharing, we make space for a new breath, new healing, a new possibility to take root. That is courage, forged in the fire of our coming together and felt in the spirit that comes alive in this act of faith, that we believe still in a new world is possible, that we are creating it already, here and now. Come, let us worship together.
Good morning. My name is Julia Gologli. Please join me in saying together the covenant of this congregation in English and in Spanish. In covenant with one another and all we hold sacred, we answer the call of love, welcoming all people into the celebration of life, searching for truth and meaning, and striving for justice and compassion to nourish and serve each other, our community, and our world. En convenio mutuo y con todo lo que consideramos sagrado, respondiendo al llamado del amor. Invitamos a todos a la celebración de la vida, buscamos la verdad y el sentido del ser, y nos esforzamos para alcanzar la justicia y la compasión, para apoyarnos y servirnos mutuamente, a nuestra comunidad y a nuestro mundo.
O God, our help in ages past, our hope for years to come, our shelter from the stormy blast, and our eternal home. Before the hills in order stood, or earth received its frame. From everlasting thou art God, through endless years the same. A thousand ages in thy sight, alike an evening gone, short as the watch that ends the night before the rising sun. When I am frightened, will you reassure me? When I'm uncertain, will you hold my hand? Will you be strong for me? Sing to me quietly. Will you share some of your stories with me? If you will show me compassion, then I may learn to care as you do. Then I may learn to care. When I am angry, will you still embrace me? When I am thoughtless, will you understand? Will you believe in me? Stand by me willingly. Will you share some of your questions with me? If you will show me acceptance, then I may learn to give as you do. Then I may learn to give. When I am troubled, will you listen to me? When I am lonely, will you be my friend? Will you be there for me? Comfort me tenderly. Will you share some of your feelings with me? If you will show me commitment, then I may learn to love as you do. Then I may learn to love.
Good morning, First Parish in Cambridge. It is a pleasure to be with you all again. Now is the time when we gather to offer our joys and concerns. You're invited at this time to enter your joys and concerns into the chat and to share all of the love that we have in this community there. And I'd like to actually begin by offering the first joy, and that is the joy of being back, combined with the joy of gratitude for having had the time off to restore and replenish, and to know that I'm coming back to a place of such tremendous love. Please enter your joys and concerns into the chat while I offer a prayer. Spirit of life, Spirit of love, God, Goddess, Holy One, we gather as one community among many communities. We gather every week to reaffirm our commitment to what we believe the world can be and how we want to see it realized every single day. And though we gather with this impulse, we know that the world doesn't always cooperate. That specifically, these days are troubled not just by racial violence, by gender violence, by economic violence, but by actual physical war. And so today I offer this prayer for the people of Ukraine and also for the people of Russia. I offer this prayer for the world, surrounded by so much love, yet unable to come to resolution of its differences. May the love that starts in each of our hearts in this space grow and touch the hearts of so many more in other spaces. And may that love travel around the world so that we all recognize how senseless any war is, and that we're able to reclaim a place and a space and a journey of peace in all of your many names. Amen. And now I will light a candle for all of the joys, another candle for the concerns, and a third candle for all of the joys and concerns and thoughts that remain in your hearts.
Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Oh, in the rise in the sea, move in the
Again, good morning, everyone. I'd like to share with you a poem from my collection of poetry, Love Beyond God. It is called Adrift in My Faith. Sometimes I am adrift in my faith, all at sea. I must remind myself that not only can I swim, but I can read the sun and the moon. I know the smell of the storm on the horizon and the buzz of the fly that says land ho. I'm adrift. And I am nearer the shore than my parents or my ancestors. Shadowy figures from books whose battered and used up bodies managed to lift me above the waves, to breathe the sweet air. The waves will rise as high as my brow. I am able to hold my breath until they ebb, and I can breathe in the sun again. I am adrift. All around me an ocean. I am a land creature by nature. I have no gills or fins or scales, and my blood is warm. With this ocean, it could consume me. With its temperature, its toxicity, asphyxiating, dehydrating. It is not my natural element, but it is beautiful and enticing. An endless plain of silk and ultramarine peaked in white lace. It enfolds me every so often in an embrace, and I rest, but briefly. I am adrift. And the silken sea water glance across my skin can send a chill or lap at my neck, much too close, despite its vast expanse. Oh, how I long for dry land, dry, safe land. Placing my feet on terra firma, terra familiar, where I know I can stand and be seen with my face turned up to the sun, saying, yes, I know I am not a fish. I am not the other. I am human and I can swim. So I am adrift, held aloft by my forebears, standing above the waves, walking on water. I read the sun and the moon, and brace for the storm on the horizon, and lead the way home. For I have heard the fly buzz. It is the sound that excites my ear. I can hear ever so tiny and clear. Listen. Land home. When I was a junior in college, the head of the creative writing department at Princeton informed me that I had not been approved for a creative thesis because the department had determined that I didn't have the discipline to complete such a project. I would have to do a regular analytical paper as opposed to writing and producing a play or a set of poetry. There was more to their decision, but having someone say this to my face was devastating. I was 20 years old at the time and had already become an accomplished songwriter, poet, ballet dancer, and classical vocalist. My entire world was shaped by discipline. So their assessment made no sense. Practice, craft, research, these were daily habits for me that allowed me to have facility with my creative talents. That moment was a turning point for me. It was when I realized that I had to look inside of myself for affirmation. Somehow, clarity of purpose must first come from within. That rejection also made me recognize the concept of discipline as something much more than just following rules. I realized that discipline could be a way of life. In fact, it had been my way of life. And that rather than constricting or preventing me, discipline empowered me and gave me freedom. Having the discipline to learn and explore my capabilities and limitations gave me confidence and intention that I carry with me to this day. Even though that one professor couldn't recognize it, I was then as I am now what most of my friends call a beast when it comes to creative capability. And it was expressly because of my discipline. And I'm proud of that. And I'm also human. I have approached ministry, both my formation and my entry into the parish, with the same enthusiastic sense of discipline that I've approached everything else in my life. I have never approached ministry with a sense of dread, but rather with a what is possible? Whatever the challenge puts me, I've tried at every turn to ask that question, what is possible? So when I ran headlong into my own humanity, I started by asking myself first, what is possible? So here I am today, back in the pulpit to which I was called 5 years ago next month, by the way, after 5 months away. And I want to be extra clear here in case there's any question that I was on a medical leave of absence. The broad brush medical condition I took leave to deal with was stress. I was not sleeping or really eating, and I couldn't seem to make my thoughts clear. As someone of tremendous discipline, I didn't recognize myself. I also couldn't figure out how I got there. I've dealt with literal life and death situations in my work at sea. I spent 7 years managing my mother's decline through Alzheimer's. I've moved across country on my own 6 times. Managing my life in the context of being the lead minister of a church should have been child's play in comparison. But it turns out it is anything but. One could blame the pandemic and isolation, but we're all facing that. One could blame conflicts within the work of ministry itself, but that is quite literally the job. One could blame my having to be pastoral support for literally everyone in my life at times, both at work and at home, but that is nothing new. One could blame the ongoing parade. What was new was that I was doing this all in the context of not just working for a church, but in the context of seeing myself as representative of the church and what it stands for, and likewise representative of the health and well-being of the entire community. I could not separate myself from the identity of the church. What this meant was that everything I was experiencing was landing with me personally, and though I had a well-trained, disciplined place to put it all, that place was full to overflow. My sense of responsibility and my discipline for managing that responsibility was actually working against me, and it was making my approach completely unsustainable. There was a moment shortly before I began my break where I thought to myself, am I the only one who takes this seriously? Does no one else recognize how urgent this thing of communal church is for everyone and not just their individual interests? My personal investment was overwhelming me, and I needed to figure it out. I needed to make a change. Probably the worst part of the overall physical and existential crisis that I ran into was a total implosion of my sense of faith. I had gotten to a point where I believed that there was nothing and no one in Unitarian Universalism worth redeeming, including myself. I felt like an imposter in a sham religion doing an act for a show obsessed with social justice. And that is not why I got into ministry. It was an unsettling feeling to consider I had lost. I did a lot of writing. Most of it will remain unpublished. I explored what it meant to be me, where I've been, where I'd like to go. I questioned my path. Is this where I should be? Why am I doing this? I took time to be quiet and far, far away, even if I didn't physically travel. I worked with a medical doctor to try medications to help me to a place of clarity. And I learned that I didn't necessarily need to stay on medication, but that I could, like a cast on a broken arm, allow for enough immobility so that the limb, in my case, my sense of self, could heal. I skated, figure skated. I landed a few clean double jumps and brushed up on some of my spins. I bought silly clothes and a ton of books. I reconnected with cherished friends around the world. And I prayed. I reconnected with my personal spiritual practice. I contemplated my faith and the history of faith. I asked myself about my connections to Christianity. I found pictures of my grandfather's church in Jamaica, which I didn't know was still standing. I started to see myself as part of a history of faith. And it was in this space of prayer and connecting with my personal sense of what is divine and holy within me that something clicked. As I started to untangle the threads, I started to see myself clearly, independent of the church, my job, Cambridge, my family, everything. The lights went back on. Or maybe they came on for the first time for me as a minister. I recognized that I am not my family. I am not my job. I am not First Parish in Cambridge. And I am not Unitarian Universalist. Rather, these things are a part of me. My family is a part of me. My job is a part of me. First Parish in Cambridge is a part of me. Unitarian Universalism is a part of me. This small switch in perspective allowed me to recognize how important it is to not get lost in any of this. I recognized how important it was to be able to identify the holy individual in me. For some of you, this may seem like a no-brainer, but you have to remember that in my work, which has been shaped by an intense discipline of learning, while navigating the otherization of racism and anti-gay hatred, the ability to fully inhabit work has been a mark of success and a tool to create safety. If you become the cruise line, no one questions your legitimacy because you're the top guy. If you become Princeton, no one questions why you are there, and so on. My super discipline and ability to learn and inhabit things fully was also my Achilles heel. And that meant it needed to change. Recently, I've been in conversation with my colleagues, many of whom are going through very tough times. Apparently, there have been some 30 departures of UU ministers in New England alone. Some have been resignations, others are negotiated. Ministers are dropping like flies. I have a colleague in another part of the country who has suddenly found himself in a negotiated resignation. This is not what they had planned only a few years into their ministry. They have to consider selling a house, relocating, and trying to understand what it means after a string of successful ministries prior to this to be presented with being forced out. Sadly, none of it is their fault. The congregation has never taken the time to explore its failings, power struggles, issues with authority, lack of clarity, and no real direction, even with mountains of status and privilege. Yet all of these things are what my colleague was trying to address. Still, the congregation is more determined to hold on to their bad ways of being than to grow with someone who cares about them and wants to see them succeed. I think about this situation and how I've seen it replicated time and time again. And I've talked to colleagues about the gut-wrenching hole this kind of failure leaves in them. Ministers, all of us, in our own ways, invest deeply in what this work is. And then I look at my own situation. Specifically, I go through the pile of cards, poems, books, and even CDs I received throughout my time off, and I realize that the tough stuff need not end in failure. Back in April of last year, convinced First Parish in Cambridge as a community was just stuck. I said to the staff, what we need is another ceiling to fall down. In that moment of crisis back in 2018, more than just the plaster, the community's heart practically, to reveal all the beauty inside and the desire for connection and deep, resonant faith, though certainly many of you wouldn't call it. When I look at the words of support and love and compassion and humor and hope in everything I receive, once again, I'm reminded of how spectacular you all are, as individuals and as a collective. I'm also aware that these cards are just a small physical manifestation of what you have all been feeling for me, regardless of whether you sent me something or not. You care. I'm reminded that by being able to differentiate myself from you and my work, I can actually love you more. It's a bit like wearing bifocals. You need some distance actually to be able to see with them, or better yet, it's like tasting a pot of hot stew. You have to walk away and let it cool some before you can come back and really taste all the beautiful flavors. I'm going to try to respond to all of the messages I received, though I know you will all say it is not necessary, as well as reaching out to many others in April. But to me, being able to help you all recognize this aspect of what it means to be First Parish in Cambridge, reflecting back how you were so willing to offer yourselves your good wishes, your love, and your prayers for me. This is some of the most important ministry that I can do. You are all good people. You are all loving people. You deserve love in return. I will do my best to give you that love and to help you recognize First Parish in Cambridge as a place where you can always bring that part of yourself to the table first. And it is my renewed call to make sure the exchange of compassion and support you've shown me isn't limited to me or to times of crisis. That impulse of connection is the glue that sits quietly behind every action, every piece of learning, every song, every relationship. And that glue is longing to be tested. That is what glue is for, to be strength where other things are weak. It is the vocabulary of being in right relationship with one another. It is where I becomes we. It is what brings people back. What you've shown me in this time off, both in your correspondence and how you responded to my absence and how you have been with each other, is what I mean when I say faith. If there is anything that has renewed my faith, it is all of you. I started this message speaking about discipline. I still believe in discipline. Again, not the ruler slapping, narrow kind, but the careful, deliberate, growing, nurturing kind of discipline. It takes a specific kind of discipline to intentionally cultivate the space of openness and vulnerability. This discipline of caring can be a way of life for us. More than ever, in a world of uncertainty, firings and resignations, ongoing illness and sudden deaths, moves and broken relationships. We can be the solid anchor. We have all the tools to model this in the community and for the rest of our world. You've shown me that, well, I just hope you can recognize it in yourselves. No matter how many ceilings fall in, you all are more than well equipped to weather the storm. Thank you for my faith. I love you. Thank you for loving me. Let's do some church. Amen and blessed be.
My God, God's love shall never end. The sand and the sea, the rush of the waters, the thundering heavens, the praise of our heart. The sand and the sea, the rush of the waters, the thundering heavens, the praise of our heart.
We invite you to unmute yourself and join me in the chalice extinguishing words. We extinguish this flame, ignite the
but not
the
the light
of truth, the warmth of community, the fire of Christ. These we carry in our hearts.
in our hearts.
We're together again.
Again.
Not quite.
Mm.